Okay, this is the first video of a series of videos on German grammar, and this one is on the perfect tense. It's designed for beginners up to GCSE level. That doesn't mean if you're studying A level or beyond, you can't use it. It just means that the vocabulary in the video and the way it's explained will be for this level, so it might explain something that you find pretty normal and pretty obvious. But it will explain from the basics right up. So it's perfect for beginners learning German for the first time. Now, here is a present tense sentence. Ich spiele Fußball. So, how do we change it to the perfect tense? Let's just put that up to the top there for a moment. Here is the perfect tense. Ich habe Fußball gespielt. That is one way to use the past tense in German. There are other past tenses, such as the imperfect tense, but we're not going to focus on that for now. If you're a beginner or learning GCSE German, the perfect tense will be 99% of everything you need to use the past tense in German. So let's get rid of the imperfect and just focus on the perfect tense. So, what is the perfect tense? Well, it's a way of saying you have done something in the past. I have done my homework. I have played football. I have gone to the cinema. And it's made up of 4 objects. The present tense is only made up of 3. Ich spiele Fußball. Now we have the subject. In this case, it's ich, but the subject is the person doing the verb. So it could be du, which would be you, which is he, or wir, which is we. It doesn't have to be ich. It has a verb as well. In this sentence, it's spiele. But it could be any verb. It could be lese, to read, höre, to hear, mache, to do. But we've chosen spiele. And an object. We've got Fußball, which means football, but the object could be anything. It could be rugby, basketball, badminton, Hausaufgaben, any noun or anything really that can be an object in a sentence. Now the perfect tense is made up of 4 things. A subject, just like the present, but it has an auxiliary verb. We'll explain that later, but in this case it's habe. It also has an object and a past participle, which will explain each of these on their own. So if you're getting confused at the moment, don't worry, we'll take it step by step. In brief, the subject will stay the same. So if your subject is ich in the present tense, it will be ich in the perfect tense. Your auxiliary verb doesn't have to exist in the present tense, but it does in the perfect tense, and it can be haben, which is here, or sein, which is here. We'll explain the difference between the two later. Your object stays the same, so that keeps life simple, and your past participle, it comes from your verb and goes to the end. So you notice gespielt, it has spiel in the middle, because it comes from spiele. We make it from spiele, and we'll explain how we do that. So the main difference between the present and the perfect tense in English and German is the verb goes to the end. In English we would say I have played football, but you'll notice in German it's I have football played. The verb goes to the end. Don't forget that. That's the most important part. If you don't put the verb at the end, you're doing it wrong. Now, let's form it. Our subject. Now, we said our subject doesn't change at all. Let's put our present tense sentence there. Our subject is ich. There we are. We have our ich. And our ich, we'll put it down there. What we're going to do throughout the video is we're going to build up the sentence along the bottom of the screen as we make each part. So we've got our ish, and I'm going to put it at the bottom. Done. That's your subject. Auxiliary verb. Here's where it starts to get confusing. So we said we can have two auxiliary verbs, and that's going to be either haben, which means to have, or sein, which means to be. Unfortunately, you can't just use any which one. You can only use haben in some cases and sein in others, and you need to know when you can and when you can't use haben and sein. You need to know when it's right to use which one. Now we're going to try and explain that now. To do that, we need two sentences. We use ich spiele Fußball and ich gehe joggen. Now, 99% of the time, the rule is if your verb, you can see I'm circling gehe, if your verb involves motion or moving, it uses sein. If it doesn't, it uses haben. So let's look at Spiele. I play. Forget about football. Just look at I play. It's not moving. I know you might be thinking in your mind, if you're playing football, you're running around. That's not the way it works. You could be sat down playing Monopoly or cards. I play. You're not going anywhere. You are not moving. It uses haben. Now, ich gehe joggen means I go jogging. I go. Now, in this case, you are moving. You are going. If you're moving, you use sein. And that's true of any verb that involves moving. So, I go, I drive, I fly, I walk, I run. Any verb that involves moving will use sein. Now, I hope that hasn't confused you, but let's get back to my normal. So, ich spiele Fußball is I play, we're not moving, so it uses haben. Now, you need to find the right part of haben, and that depends on your person. So your person will be one of the things we're about to put onto the board. Ich habe, du hast, sie, es hat, wir haben, ihr habt, sie or sie haben. So in our case, we are using ich, so we want the ich form of haben, which, as it says there, is habe. So let's put that down with the rest of our sentence. Ich habe. As we said with our subject, it could be any of a number of things. It could have been du, in which case we would need du hast. It could have been wir, in which case we need wir haben, etc. So that's how you make the auxiliary verb. Now the third part is the object, which doesn't change at all. Life is easy. Take our sentence, take your object, that goes next. Ich habe Fußball. And now you need one last ingredient and your perfect tense is complete. The past participle, which we said comes from your verb and goes to the end. It's important you remember your past participle goes to the end of the sentence. Let's take our sentence again. Now we have ich spiele Fußball. It comes from the verb, so we want the verb spiele. Remember, a verb is a doing word. It's something you're doing. In this case, you are playing, and we want the verb in the infinitive. Now the infinitive is the unchanged verb, spielen. We saw two infinitives on the other pages, haben and sein. And when we put haben on the board, let's go back and have a look. There we are. We had lots of different versions of haben. Ich habe, du hast. Now this bit at the top that I'm circling with the en on the end is what we call the infinitive of the verb. It's not changed. Now this bit here, harbour, hast, hat, and so on, is what we call the conjugated verb. It's the bit that's changed. And you can change it in many different ways depending on what you want to do. So if you change it to harbour, that means you can put it with ish, but we want to change it into a past participle. Let's go back. So to change spielen into a past participle, you need to do three things. Number one, take off the ending. So we take en off, which leaves us with spiel. Two, add g or ge to the beginning of the verb, so that leaves us with gespielt. And finally, add a t to the end, gespielt. Gespielt is our past participle. Unfortunately, no, it's not that simple with every verb. If you have what we call an irregular verb, it will not follow the pattern. Most verbs are regular, and if it's regular, it follows the pattern. Take off the ending, add g to the beginning, add t to the end. If it doesn't, though, it will do something different, and unfortunately, that's different for each irregular verb, and you will just have to learn that. But going back to our sentence, we put gespielt at the end, and you can see on the bottom of the sentence, ich habe Fußball gespielt. Let's just recap everything. So you have a subject, which is ich, which is the same as your present tense. You have an auxiliary verb, in this case habe, which comes from the right part of haben or sein. So you choose the verb you need, then you choose the right ending. Then you have Fußball, which comes from your original sentence and doesn't change, your object. Then you have gespielt, which comes from your verb, and if it's a regular verb, follows the pattern that's left on the screen. If it's not, it does something different. And the verb goes to the end. So gespielt, or gehört, or gelesen, or gehabt, or gewesen, whatever your past participle is, will always be at the end of the sentence. Thank you for watching. Dankeschön. I hope this video has helped. If it has or hasn't, please let me know so I can make reference for future videos.